Hi, on today's counter session I wanted to talk about cutting onions, which is something I do almost daily in my house, and this way that I love to do it makes it easy and it gives you very uniform pieces, whether that is a sliced onion or a rough chopped onion or a diced onion or a minced onion. A good chef's knife is pretty important in this. It doesn't have to be expensive. It can be a $20 to $25 Victorinox that you get at your restaurant supply store. A thing to remember about chef's knives is even if you have a really expensive one, it needs to be sharpened every so often because even the best, most expensive chef knives will not stay sharp forever. So get your knives sharpened and be very careful using them after you do, because you're most likely to cut yourself when using a sharpened knife after having used dull knives. So let's cut an onion. So what I have here is one large yellow onion. If you're like me, when I used to cut onions when I first started cooking, the first thing I did was I set the onion down and I whacked off both of these ends. The problem with that is that when you do that, you basically cut off any sort of way to hold the onion together while you cut, which makes it really hard to get uniform pieces. So the way I cut an onion is I first cut it pole to pole. Now I have my half of an onion, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the end where the green sprouts, whatever the green things are, came out. So next I'm going to peel the onion. Just peel off this top layer of skin. And then you just cut it however your recipe calls for it. So slices, you can do thin slices, you can do thicker slices, you can do a rough chop, and a rough chop would be, there's nice little natural lines on the onion, little ridges, and you can use those as a guide. For a rough chop, I might cut along these ridges 5 times. And because we haven't cut off our ends, we have a root end to hold on to and to hold everything together. And so then we can cut maybe 1/4 to 1/2 inch pieces. And you have a nice little pile of rough chopped onion. For a diced onion, I might cut on almost every longitudinal line. Probably about every 1/4 inch. Again, my root end is kind of holding everything together for me, which is helpful. And then just cut about 1/4, 1/8 to 1/4 inch this way. Sometimes you'll see people cutting 1 or 2 cuts this way all the way to the root. I don't really find that necessary. It's a step that I usually skip. So now I have a nice little pile of diced onions. If your recipe ever calls for a mince, you have the option at this point to rock your knife over this pile to make even smaller pieces. I'm not crazy about doing this because when that happens, when you do that, you release the juices of the onion, and so you're much more likely to cry when those juices are released and the fumes hit your face. I mean, sometimes you cry even if you're just doing it like this, but much more so if you rock the knife and mince the onion. So if a recipe calls for mince, I just try to be even smaller with my cuts when I initially cut the onion. So there we have it. Very easy cutting an onion.